Hey, it's XPlayman, and I've done a video on YouTube. This one. Yeah, it's been a while. It's about 0 hour, like all the other videos have been. You ever heard, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all? When was my last video? So, yeah, 0 hour in May of 2022. Where are we? Well, I started playing 0 hour probably about February, March of 2021. And at that time, the game had about 180, 120, depending on the time of day, peak players. At that time, the game, you could see how promising it was and where it was going. And it was just like, okay. The problem without having a roadmap is that you kind of have to anticipate where the game is going as it comes out. So when Operation Black Dawn came out, we saw improvements. There were, some bug fixes for maps and like the drop shotting, snaking thing that was going on, that got fixed. And so, you could see the game progressing, and it was just, this is exciting. The game is going places. Many people, including myself, called it at the time the Rainbow Six Siege that we never got, because Siege is not necessarily a bad game, but it's not really a Tom Clancy game or Rainbow Six game. That's something that if you were a fan of Rainbow Six before Siege was a little bit of a disappointment for what you expected. 0 hour was closer to being a Rainbow Six sequel that we just never got.
This is what Rainbow Six, the sequel, should have been. Not necessarily Siege as you know it, but if you're going to call a game a Rainbow Six game, this is what it should have been.
Now you fast forward a little bit where we did a couple tournaments. In fact, I hosted 3 of them, and we had 2 leagues, 2 seasons. So the hype for the game with its future looking bright and how competitive the game was all looking great. And then Operation Meghna came out. So by August, the game was hitting over 4,000 players. It actually hit that in July. It was 4,288. And then in August, the Operation Meghna update came out, and the developers actually had a sponsored stream with 5 major streamers, mainly led by Shroud and Clean and Pestily. And that really didn't bring any more players, because what that stream did do is highlight a lot of the problems that were already discussed to the developers before that stream even happened. Hang on, why are we celebrating 1 year on the Steam store too? I have no idea. Yeah, we could celebrate when the game's done, but 1 year on the Steam store by having one of the biggest streamers on any streaming platform play a broken version of the game is beyond me. So, yeah, player drop-off was real and fast. After the Operation Meghna update, you can see that there was about 3,800 plus players, and then it just dropped by like more than half. It dropped to about 1,600 players. So anyone looking at that data, which of course the developers have access to that data and more, regardless of the comments that players are leaving, anybody looking at that data could say, clearly the update didn't hit well with our players. Maybe we need to roll back some changes. And it just didn't happen. Lack of anti-cheat was definitely one of the big things. In the quality of life update, we eventually did get the anti-cheat. Came out in December. And the anti-cheat wasn't working day one. Yeah. It was there, it was installed on the system, but it wasn't working because of the way the developers added it to the game. So what other quality of life improvements were in that update? A new training ground for new players that had old directions in the tutorial. So it wasn't even teaching players the correct way to play the game at that time. What else was in the quality of life update? There was a new weapon sway system added to some weapons, not all weapons, that made aiming worse than a child holding a gun. But these are supposed to be trained operators. What else was added to the quality of life update? The camera shake, so that when a grenade exploded or somebody broke a window, your camera would shake. But if you were on the other side of the wall, where there was no way that glass breaking or the frag exploding could affect you, you still experienced the camera shake. What else was done in the quality of life update? So basically, quality of life update was not a quality of life improvement at all. And then we heard nothing from the devs. It was just radio silence for a long period of time until eventually Operation Red Wedding. Communication did improve during Operation Red Wedding. That is 100%. You cannot fault them for communications since then. But the communication hasn't been great as far as what they've been communicating. It's been, Operation Red Wedding was a good update of just content, no more tweaking. By the next update, which is coming out in just a few days, Operation Rat's Den, that update is bringing us, again, more content, FPS improvements. The frame rate improvements are really good. I've been waiting to talk about it because I wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything else added to the game that would take away from those improvements. But no, it's just actually improved on every single map. You see, frame rate improvements, which is great. But there's no gameplay changes. That anything that reverts anything that came out in Operation Meghna. I mean, anyone looking at the data could clearly see that the fault of the player drop is solely on the Operation Meghna update. That wasn't a gradual decline. You can see it was a sharp nosedive because of the update. But still, they've held firm with the changes in there and actually added more changes in the quality of life improvement to make the gameplay slower. People were already complaining before the Operation Meghna update that there was not enough stamina given to the operators who seemed asthmatic with the stamina that they had. Co-op had too much stamina, PvP had too little stamina. And instead, they kept trying to slow down the gameplay with things that make the operators seem like they're not professional at all. I mean, they're not even amateur, they're worse than amateur at handling weapons. So that's where we are at today. And it's honestly not a fun experience anymore. That's why I went from streaming 0 Hour literally every single day for about 6 months to just not at all. Unless there's like a new update, that comes out where we play it for a few days. But 0 Hour really hasn't been the same fun game that it was before because these developer updates have stripped away the fun. I don't think 0 Hour is done. I think that 0 Hour still has a future. It's early access. I mean, on a couple of Friday nights, the 3 Friday nights I was looking at player counts, and there were 50 players on a Friday night. They can still make changes, but it's going to require the developers to listen to the feedback, not of the 50 players that are currently playing the game. Now, if you want to listen to the 50 players that are currently playing the game, you're going to stay at 50. You want to find out why the other 4,200 players left the game? Find out why they left the game. Believe me, they don't need to find out. Those people have told the developers already. It's just a matter of actually listening to those changes that they're asking for. The Operation Meghna changes, many of those to be reversed. This is where we are today, where as of an hour ago, there were 186 players. It hasn't really broken 200 players, in a while. And what's really frustrating for someone who I guess is still considered a 0 Hour content creator and someone who's a private tester is that I'll get a DM from someone from M7 Productions saying, hey, we're obviously having an issue with player retention. What ideas do you have to retain players? Well, I didn't even entertain some of the suggestions in there. My response was, you have to have players to retain in the first place. There is no one playing the game right now because of the state of the game. You have to give people a reason to come back in the first place. Every time there's a new update, look at Operation Red Wedding. People come back for the updates because they want to see changes. This whole gradual drop-off from Operation Meghna happened because there was no update, except for the quality of life update, which obviously you see it's still dropped off. But there was no update from Operation Meghna until Operation Red Wedding. People come back, and when they see that the gameplay is still the same gameplay as before, they leave. Obviously, gameplay is what needs fixing here. So until the developers want to fix that, you're not going to see players come back. But that's what's so frustrating. They ask for feedback on retaining players, but the answer is to fix the game. when the game is good, people come play the game. That's how they grew in the first place, because the gameplay was getting better. But if you're going to ask for feedback, you have to be prepared that what you're currently doing is wrong. And players have been telling, not only with their own mouths and through the comments that have been written about the changes and the players' dislike for the changes, but through the actual player count. So there is hard data to tell you that what you're doing is wrong if you're trying to get players to play your game. So if they don't listen to that, the game's never going to recover. But again, I don't think the game is done. They can still gain those players back if they just listen and make those changes that undo some of the changes that they did before, or lower the strength of some of those, like weapon sway and camera shake. I think the camera shake is fine if it worked properly. I shouldn't experience camera shake on the other side of a wall from an explosion or the glass breaking. That makes no sense. Yeah, that's not a problem that testers need to figure out the scenario for how this happens. That's a development problem. You need to go ahead and fix that. This is just the current state of 0 Hour right now. So Operation Rat's Den's coming out. I think it's going to be another thing like Red Wedding. People are going to come back, they're going to check it out, find the gameplay's the same, find that the frame rate is improved, which is a good thing, but people aren't playing the game because of, hey, the frame rate's a little bit better. Now, great, I'll come back and play now. They were playing the game before when we had the tune of 4,000 plus players with a lower frame rate because the gameplay was good. So until the gameplay changes, it's going to be just another Red Wedding where the content's great, people are going to come back and play that for a very brief week, and then it's going to drop off because they realize the gameplay is exactly like before. So that's where we're at. Just a little piece into why I'm not playing the game anymore, and I'm only really playing it when there's updates. Since Operation Meghna, the most time I've spent playing 0 Hour has been for private testing and to provide feedback on those updates. But if you want to see where other content is being made that I'm doing outside of this YouTube channel with videos, you might have seen the YouTube shorts and the lives, which are really the Twitch replays. But I've been on Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 p.m. Eastern, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Been keeping that schedule consistent for over a year now. Actually, we just passed the 1 year mark earlier this month. And the day before the 1 year mark, passed 1,000 followers on Twitch. So thank you all for making that happen. And check out everything else I'm doing on the YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. But here on YouTube, I'm going to try to work on finding like a faster way to do videos so I can, have a little work stream YouTube balance. Figure all that out. Thank you all for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, whenever that is. Bye.